Good morning. Welcome to the Windsor Star News Cafe. I'm Don McArthur here with Bill and Kristy and our special guest, incumbent Ward 8 councillor Bill Marra, who's running for re-election.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here this morning.
Excellent. Well, I guess we should kick it off. You've had 5 terms on council. This would be your 6th if you're elected back. You were first elected in 1994.
That's right.
So 20 years. And this, of course, is probably the biggest shakeup on council with incumbents not running again since you've run. Is there any concern for you personally, just having been on council, having this whole new, team to play on after this election?
I'm not concerned. You make a very good point. In my 20 years, Dylan, I've never seen the potential for such a significant turnover. 4 members of council are not seeking re-election to their ward seats, and of course there's a vacancy for the mayor's seat. So when you look at the slate of candidates, however, across the municipality, there are some very bright, intelligent, hardworking, caring people, and I think the change will be good. It'll introduce, I believe, some fresh ideas and perspective on municipal priorities, and I think it'll be a welcome change. I'm hoping myself to play a role. In fact, I think that at age 49, going into my potential 6th term of council, I can lend some experience and leadership around whatever transition challenges we might face with the number of new people that will be around the table. But I think it's exciting.
Yeah, excellent.
Now, 6 terms, that's an awful lot of terms. Of course, there's some people would talk about term limits, this and that. When is it going to be time to go? Fulvio's going, Halberstadt's going, the old guard is going, but you're still sort of holding down the fort. So how come you're not going? And double-barrel question, how come you didn't run for mayor?
Yeah, well, very good question. I'll answer the second one first. The run for mayor, I gave it very serious consideration, but very candidly, I had to put some personal and family priorities ahead of it. When you look at really the benchmark that Eddie set around the mayor's office, it goes beyond a 24/7 commitment. You have to really be able to put everything else in your life to the side, Don, and make it your #1 priority. And in my family situation, I wasn't able to do that or be prepared to do that. However, the delay in my decision really was around the first question you asked, and that was around the run for council. I wanted to ensure that if I did proceed with it, it had some meaningful purpose around it. There are still a couple of priorities in my ward that are extremely important to me. I want to get a community center in there because of the loss of Adstall Arena, and I want to hit a few areas still where we're facing basement flooding. And then on a broader level, I want to continue my leadership role around public transit. I think there's a terrific opportunity around regional public transit. I'd like to champion an urban housing strategy, particularly focusing around the downtown. And then I think there's work still to be done on job creation, and my focus, and I think a focus of City Council, needs to be around the small business community. Creating policies that allow for retention and expansion. So when I thought of those issues, knowing what my role could be, I felt that at least one more term was appropriate for me, and that's why I put my name forward.
Okay. So this community center, where are we going to get the money for it, or is it going to go on the site of Adstall? What is your vision, and how would we fund it?
Well, we built the Fontainebleau Library, as you might recall, on Rivard Street, and that building was designed and built with the opportunity for expansion. So there's the south side of the wall that can be expanded from. And the idea is to build a business case for it. You've got to present ideas in a responsible way and get it into the 5-year capital plan. And I'm working with the Friends of Fontainebleau around bringing this forward. So it's not going to happen overnight, but if I can get council to believe in the business plan, that it'll create value for Ward 8, and then get it into the 5-year budget cycle, it'll be budgeted like all other priorities. I'm not suggesting we bump projects, but we do this in an appropriate business case fashion like we've done other projects.
Excellent. All right. Well, you have one person running against you, Heather Burton, right now. There's a lot of power that comes with being incumbent, and you get a lot of votes for name recognition. Does that kind of change things for you as you've run? Are you still getting out there, knocking on doors, hustling as hard as you would have?
Are you resting on your laurels, Bill, or are you out there hustling?
No, I don't think I've rested on my laurels for a couple of decades. I've never taken re-election for granted, Dylan. I really enjoy the privilege of serving. I understand that it is a privilege. So no, I don't take anything for granted. Heather is a very nice lady. We served on a crime prevention committee together, so I know she's interested in the community, and good for her for putting her name forward and running. I think that's a great opportunity for anyone to consider, but never take it for granted. I have my literature out there. I've visited several neighborhoods. Perhaps I'm a little more pulled back on lawn signs in some of the other wards. There's a proliferation in other areas, but lawn signs don't vote. It's about communication with the community. The other, part of it is...
Are you spending money, though, on lawn signs and such, and literature this campaign? Or, Are you holding back, like, to save a couple of bucks, knowing that you're probably a shoo-in?
No, no, not at all. I'll probably be spending somewhere between $7,000 and $8,000 on this election. My literature has to go out. I spend money on that. It's good quality information. The only thing I'm not spending money on is lawn signs. I've happened to collect a few over the last 20 years. So I've got about 1,000 of those sitting in my attic, so I'm good for that.
Okay. We got to get to this. When you everyone thought you were going to run for mayor, and you had a press conference to announce you weren't going to run for mayor, but that quickly morphed into a Bash Eddie Francis session, for good or for ill. I'm going to show you. This was Mike Graston's take on it here. He's got you as the cat taking a swipe at Eddie. So I guess first of all, address some nice comments you made off camera about Mike Graston, and then why did you do that? You got taken to task by Vanderdolen, by the Windsor Star editorial board. They called it a messy exit, and that it lacked tact and class. I mean, you were voting yes with a guy for 11 years, and then boom, on his way out the door, you kick him in the butt. So just address that. Yeah,
sure. First of all, the Graston piece was my wife's favorite by far over the last 20 years. So I'd like to pay him tribute publicly. I actually emailed him after that was done. Don, here's what happened. I had a press conference. I was asked questions around leadership style and what I would like to see, what they thought I would like to see in the next mayor. And I described that. And when asked about my difference between the current mayor and I, there is a distinct difference. It was a statement of fact. And the part of the sensitivity over the last few years is every time I would get out ahead of an issue and bring leadership to an issue, I was always judged with the lens of the following. He's just going to run for mayor, and that's why Bill's doing this. And so this provided an opportunity for me to perhaps express a few views that I've had to be very measured around while sitting as a member of council with the potential that I was running for mayor. I don't regret what I said. What I described was my experience around the table. You're not a member of council. You're not a member of council. Nor are people with your editorial board. And in fact, those folks who wrote those comments, I think somebody asked me to man up in one of the editorials.
They did man up and move on.
Well, I think the people that need to man up are those who write those things. I'd like to know who's writing this. Put yourself out there like I have for 20 years. I sit around the table. I've endured debates. I've endured dynamics that have been difficult. And what I described was a state of affairs that has existed at council. The reality is, if you weren't in lockstep with certain decisions, and if you look at voting records, it's not always been yes. I introduced the idea of an auditor general, Don. I voted against outsourcing it. I feel very strongly about some recent decisions around an East End arena, the FINA games, which are going to cost us tens of millions of dollars in the end. So there is a distinction. I described, from my perspective, the dynamics that exist. And then I answered the question around what kind of leader should we have in the mayor's office. What was interesting is everything I described around what a potential leader should be was verbatim what Councillor Fulvio Valentinas described a week after me when he announced he wasn't running anymore. So, that's how I feel. That's what I've experienced for 20 years. And folks who feel otherwise have absolutely their opportunity to their opinion. I just wish that not everybody would hide behind the veil of an editorial. For example, if you're going to come out with an opinion or a strong statement around Bill Marra, let me know who you are. Put yourself out there like I have for 2 decades.
Okay, well, Vanderdolen certainly did it, and just to defend the editorial board, it's a centuries-long tradition that an editorial board, it's a consensus opinion. That's why
I know that.
They're not signed, so it could have been anybody.
But I have the opportunity to say that.
You can give them
so
a couple of shots
Right,
too. Oh, for sure, we buy our ink by the barrel.
I know you do. I know you do.
You can comment under any editorial too. But then, having said that, you said you did comment on what kind of leader you would like to see kind of head up the city of Windsor. There are 3 main contenders right now. How do you see the Windsor mayoral race playing out? Is there one candidate that you see kind of pulling ahead that you think has all those traits that you mentioned that should be the mayor of the city?
Well, clearly there are some solid candidates. I know Robin Easterbrook a little bit. I think he's kind of grouped up there occasionally. But I know Drew very well. We've been colleagues for 8 years. I've known John Milson since 1995. And Larry Horowitz has been a downtown champion. So all 3 gentlemen, they're described as the potential leaders. Mm-hmm. I think they bring some very unique and special traits to the potential of being mayor. I think they're all capable of doing it. So I'm not concerned. I'm very confident that whoever is elected by the community on October 27th is going to be capable of leading. I think they've heard the message as I have. It's not Bill Marra's opinion that we need someone that's collaborative and someone that can bring the group together and forward the agenda. It's the community's opinion. I've been listening to folks. I hear it through editorials, phone calls, emails, and I think it's someone that has to be able to bring forward, particularly this council, with the level of turnover that we talked about earlier, someone who can manage the change and not spend a lot of time learning the job, because 4 years goes by quickly. Establish some priorities, bring the group together, and focus on the main issues concerning our community. So The leaders that are there now, Dylan, are more than capable. I look forward to working with anyone. This community has come to know me well.
That sort of sounds like you're endorsing Dilkins there, though.
I'm not endorsing anyone, and I think I'm
But
glad.
you guys you're pretty tight.
We have a very good working relationship, Drew and I. Even when we've disagreed on issues, we've maintained civility. I think John Milson's done an outstanding job in his career in the private sector. And Larry Horowitz, I think, as I've described, has been a champion of the city center. I think they all bring unique traits. I look forward to working with a new mayor and some new colleagues on council if re-elected. And I'm just as excited as everyone else. I'll be watching carefully on the 27th while I try to get myself elected. But here's the key to it. It's not rocket science. It's listening to the community. It's listening to average citizens who live in the neighborhoods who are most affected by our decisions. You know, the irony around municipal government is we collect on average about 7% of what individuals pay in taxes. The under 93% are collected by the provincial and federal government. However, we seem to have the greatest impact. We're so grassroots. We make decisions on a Monday night that affect Tuesday morning. We talk about property taxes that are close to people. So it's a significant and a very serious role. So I'm anxious to work with the new elected officials. I hope they take it as serious as they should. This is serious business. It's not a popularity contest. And we've got work to do. We have our challenges. So we got to hit the road running December 1st.
Okay, I'm going to throw this one at you. Just ended on a hard one. In Ward 10, he's going to be on here a little bit later. Al Magny, would you vote for him? Has he redeemed himself?
Well, I think Al Magny has done a very good job in attempting to redeem himself. That circumstance that he went through was really challenging. I've never seen anything like it. And I'll be honest with you, he faced the fire in such a way that most individuals, I think, would not have done. I think most people would have considered resigning or at the very least not running. So you have to give him credit for that. At the end of the day, Don, I think it's the electorate that needs to decide that, really. It's the most democratic system we live in the world. When you look at what's happening globally, and people who are protesting for the fundamental right to vote, it's a non-issue here. And I hope that the mayor's race drives out the voter turnout. And in Al Magny's case, he's got to work hard to get reelected. That's the bottom line. The electorate, the Ward 10 people are the best ones to decide whether or not he deserves the opportunity. And I think if he works hard enough, I think they'll give him serious consideration.
Oh, that's great. Excellent. Well, Bill, thank you so much for coming on. Best of luck in this upcoming election. And this has been Trail Talk.
Yeah, thank you both.